All right, this is going to be my first, probably only, The Last of Us video. I have already completed in the time. It's about, well, let's see, it's January 15th, and so I'd say in the last 2 months, starting in mid-November, I played The Last of Us 1 and The Last of Us 2, and I played them basically back to back, and honestly, it's felt like I've just been playing one big long game. I didn't do a good job of really recording the best parts or even good parts. In fact, I forgot most of the time. I was so distracted. But I did. I was so distracted by how great the game was that I actually forgot to do any recordings. But most of the time I forgot. But sometimes I did some recordings. And so I recorded almost 80 minutes of footage, and I trimmed it down to 50. And I decided I would just play it all and just sort of watch it and talk a little bit about, what's on the footage, but also just the game itself. I'm glad that I recorded this early part, though, with these dogs, because I did not like the dogs at all. As you can tell, I think I was probably scarred by the fact that my very first encounter with the dog resulted in the death that you just saw. I never was very good at getting away from the dogs or distracting them or whatever you're supposed to do. So I just started making it a point of if I ever see a dog, I'm just going to kill it right away. And even if that alerts all the soldiers, so be it. That was kind of my approach.
God damn it!
After my first few run-ins that led to deaths. But I'm actually glad that I had such a hard time with the dogs, because it made the part when you start the Abby story and you encounter the kennels. I just laughed out loud at that part. I mean, it was so funny to me to see these cute little puppy wuppies that I had just been at war with, and I just hated so much. And to see them presented as these great little doggies, that was funny to me. That was me trying to get the dog off the scent. Did it work? I don't know. This was actually rather early in the game if you consider how long this game was. This game was it took me, I think it was 40 hours when I was done. And this was probably around the 10-hour mark, I'd say. And so I wasn't fully comfortable with shooting all the weapons or knowing exactly what to do in the combat situations. So I think some of the stuff here might be a little awkward. This was the Hillcrest level, and I remember when I was done with Hillcrest, this was Seattle Day 2 for Ellie, and when I was done with Hillcrest, I thought to myself that this will probably end up being my least favorite part of the entire game. In hindsight, I don't know if that's true. There was some stuff with Abby later that was pretty tough. But generally speaking, Hillcrest was hard because you spent the first, many hours of the game with the company of Dina. And Dina was great. I mean, not only did she seem to be a very competent, partner in terms of being able to fight. I don't actually know if she was, but you felt that way. You really felt like someone had your back with Dina. And Dina was also great fun to talk to. She had a lot of interesting things to say, and she had a fun personality. I really loved being with Dina. And then for Day 2, they send you out on your own, and it's just so different. And it's funny because I'm not actually sure that the gameplay is that different. I don't know that the NPC partners do a whole lot. I know they do some. I mean, they get a few kills every now and then. But I think the game is generally balanced so that it's not actually harder when you don't have an NPC partner, but it just, the whole feel is different. You literally feel alone, And, just like that would be in real life, same as in the game, when you feel alone, you feel like everything is just scarier, and there's just a level of tense. Everything's just more tense. And Hillcrest was long. I mean, there were a lot of guys. A lot of sections. A lot of monsters. There would be bloaters later. And you have to do everything on your own. Now, there was plenty of resources, plenty of supplies. That never really turned into an issue.
God damn it!
But it went on a really long time. And then in the middle, there's this part where you find Jesse at the end of the section that I'm in right now. And you bring him back to the theater. And that was almost like a tease, because you thought, okay, I found Jesse, now he's going to be with me. But then he wasn't. He stayed at the theater. And you had to go back out on your own again for the second half of Seattle Day 2, which might have even been worse than the Hillcrest part. You had to fight those horrible stalkers in the hotel, or whatever kind of building that was. There's no doubt in my mind, stalkers are my least favorite levels of any kind. They're my least favorite. I'd rather fight bloaters than fight stalkers, I think. So, The Last of Us is a game that I knew about because I would often look up top 10 lists or, greatest games of all time type lists. And Last of Us Part 1 is a very old game, dating back to 2013, and it would very often appear on Best of Us lists. And I remember in 2020, the year now is 2023, but in 2020 when Part 2 came out, there was a lot of excitement about it and then a lot of talk about it. And people had a lot of different opinions. And I'm going to try in this video to not really talk about anybody else's opinions, just give my own opinions. It seemed like there were, voluminous content of opinions online about this game going in every different possible direction, and held with a lot of passion. All of which is a sign of what a great game it is and what a great game Part 1 was, and how it set a lot of people had a lot of strong opinions about what Part 2 ought to be because of how attached they were to Part 1. And I remember that from 2020, but I didn't think to play it because for a long time I kind of felt like most video games were not for me. Only certain select franchises like Final Fantasy and the Dark Souls games were for me, but generally speaking, most games I just felt like if I tried them I wouldn't like them. I just had that thought. And I think it was actually playing Horizon and realizing that that was a really great game. It absolutely was for me. I think Horizon Horizon definitely competes with Final Fantasy and Dark Souls for being my favorite franchise and the most fun I've ever had with a game. So I've been trying to play more of these so-called greatest hits games and just give them all a chance. Look at that. Oh my god, it's so brutal. Her stealth kills in this game are so brutal. I'm glad I got that one on recorded because that was the original one. It's knife to the neck and then she pulls it out the front. And then later in the game she would get a different version that was like you slit the throat and then stab right in the gut, which was completely insane. Okay, so fast forward here to the much further on in the game. This is Abby, and this is close to the end of Abby's Day 3, and I'm basically sneaking past all these guys who are, this is the Sephiroths. The Sephiroths are warring with the... what's their names? And I'm trying to sneak through all this. Hold on, I need to check. Alright, I'm back. So, yeah, I'm trying to sneak through this. I almost get away, but I didn't. I thought that the later episodes with Abby, all these episodes on the island with Abby, I didn't know if this was what you were supposed to do or not, but it just seemed really appropriate. Like, maybe now is the time to actually try to sneak through some levels. Don't kill everybody. Just see what it would be like to just try to sneak through. And I did that with a number of the levels, and I was on my way to doing it here, although I ended up getting caught at the end. It might have taken me an hour to kill each and every one of these guys, which is probably what I would have done, what I usually do. Here, see, I try to get away from this guy, but he catches me, so then I figure, let's just run. Let's just run. Because I thought I might have been near the end. Now you can see I'm getting shot quite a few times and I'm not dying. This is on easy mode, or whatever the second to easiest mode is. And then here I found the horse. But anyway, as I was saying before, you know, I have been trying to play greatest hits games. They haven't all worked. I played God of War. I didn't really like it. I played Shadow of the Colossus. I didn't really like it. I played Witcher 3. I didn't really like it. But I thought, okay, you know, I'll try this game. And in particular, I was looking to play something on my PlayStation 5 because I had spent all this money on a PlayStation 5 and I hadn't played it. After I finished Elden Ring and Horizon Forbidden West, I didn't have anything to play on the PlayStation 5, but I knew that there was this Last of Us Part 1 that had come out for the PlayStation 5. And so I thought, okay, well, let's try it. It was quite expensive too, $70, but I think it was worth it, and I'm glad that I did it. And I'm glad that I played that one, because I read online, they said that what they wanted to do with Part 1 was to make it so much like Part 2 that it would seem seamless for someone like me that was coming along later and discovering both. And that's exactly true. Part 2 was actually a little bit... It wasn't quite seamless because Part 1 had these really awesome haptic controller stuff, which Part 2 didn't have. But in terms of the menus and everything, and pretty much everything with combat, it just felt exactly the same. So again, that's kind of why I feel like it's just been one long game for me. I liked this part. I like levels like this, things that are kind of different and unique, as long as they're easy and you don't die. If they're hard and you die, then they just become frustrating and aggravating. But if they're easy and you don't die, then they add to the excitement. And I would say at this point, in day 3 with Abby, I was feeling like this was getting pretty exciting. This was some pretty serious stuff that was going on right here.
The horse! Forget it. We have to keep moving.
I had recorded an earlier part with Abby too, but I took it out because I didn't want this to be an 80-minute video. So I took out the earlier part with Abby, but it was when her and Lev were climbing the skyscrapers, and they had to battle some Sephirites near the top of the skyscrapers. And that whole skyscraper thing was really awesome. I remember thinking with Abby that you know, it was important that they make her story feel different somehow than the Ellie story. And I'm not sure that they succeeded entirely, but I do think that they were smart to make the environments, even though we're still in Seattle, the environments were different. We, obviously here on this island, this was very different than anything Ellie did, but also the skyscrapers. The skyscrapers was a really cool idea, and walking across those beams at the end, you could really feel Abby's fear, and I kind of felt it myself. At this point in the game, I'm even on this level, I'm still trying to sneak through. Part of it is because, again, it kind of feels like what Abby and Lev are supposed to be doing. I mean, they're trying to get to this dock. There's this war going on. I don't think they're really trying to interrupt the war to single-handedly kill every single person. I don't think that's what they're trying to do, so it still felt right to me to sneak through. But also I admit that at this point in the game, I was feeling I did kind of feel like I was racing toward the end because I knew that this was day 3, and I knew that just after this we were finally going to get back to the theater. And I had been waiting for close to 15 hours, I think, at this point, to get back to the theater. I think days 1, 2, and 3 with Abby took about 15 hours after playing 22 hours just to get to the theater. So I knew we were finally going to get back to the theater. And boy, what a strange idea to have, you know, a cliffhanger that you have to wait 15 hours to get back to, but it definitely had me on the edge of my seat, like, as we were approaching it. And I loved, well, I had mixed feelings about what actually does happen in the theater, but I love the way that you controlled Abby in the aquarium, that you find Owen and Mel and Alice in the aquarium. I love that. And then I love that you even had to play a little bit to find your way into the theater. And it was kind of cool sneaking through the back door and walking through that area, which of course I was already familiar from playing with Ellie. But of course I did not like the Ellie versus Abby David style battle. I didn't like the primary reason I didn't like it is because I don't like the David style battles. They feel like gimmick battles to me, and again, like I was saying with the horse riding, I only like the gimmicks if they're easy. But I died a lot in the David style battle with Ellie and Abby. Ellie was killing me constantly, so that kind of sucked. In fact, I think I died more in that little confrontation than anything else in the game. So it was frustrating to me. Here I am just running for my life. I'm like, okay, that's it. Let's just run.
God damn it!
The battle between Ellie and Abby in the theater, that was frustrating to me.
Go.
I didn't like it that much, but I still thought that it was very well done, the way they had the cliffhanger, and then you had to play with Abby to get back to that point.
Come on. Come on.
Of course, the character of Abby was different from Ellie in that she had the melee fights. She had enhanced melee skill tree, and they had this whole thing that I never really experimented with, this whole skill where if you hit a stunned enemy, then if you stun an enemy by throwing a bottle at them and then you hit them, then you get this extra stun power thing where additional melee attacks would have all these different additional effects. I never really tried that, going down that route, but that was something they were trying to do with Abby. And so, of course, here you get this. In some sense, I guess this is the final boss of the game for the Abby story. Even though the Rat King is probably Abby. That was Abby's true big moment, I think. But you still get this moment here. By the time I was fighting this guy, I felt like I already kind of knew how to do this. So I didn't find this to be terribly frustrating, and I didn't die. It was, I did get hit a lot of times, though. I think if I was playing this on a harder difficulty level, I would have probably died. Ugh, look at that shot that Lev just took right in the face. How did Lev even survive that? The butt of the axe right to the face from that guy? I don't know how Lev could survive that. Funny thing about this guy is that he's apparent, by all appearances, he's just, I mean, I think he's just a normal human being, although he almost appears demonic here, but like, I think he's just a normal human being, and he takes so much brutal damage. I'm laughing at this. There's no way that Ellie could survive, or there's no way that Abby could survive even one of those shots. You take a shot like that to the back, I think it pretty much breaks your back. But here she is. Ugh. The key with this guy, I learned, was just dodged 3 times, I guess. Dodging once or twice was not enough. How did he take that to the face? I actually am glad that I recorded this part. I wish that I recorded the battle with the Rat Kid. That was absolutely insane for the game. Good old Lev's always saving Abby. And Lev even saves Ellie at the end. She's the... Ellie gets saved because Lev tells Abby not to kill her. I had predicted that because of that... Wait, hold on, the next part. I mean, oh my god. This game really pushed... You know, like, I've played the Souls games, and the Souls games are famously, like, gory, but in kind of a mythic way. You know, not really so much of a real humans fighting other humans way, the way this game is. And this game had some stuff that was just like, oh my god, I've never seen anything like it in a video game. Like, definitely I wouldn't want my son or anyone else to see this until they're much, much older. Alright, fast forward to this part. I was really happy when the game gave me a chance to be Ellie again, and to be Ellie with all of the same equipment. It didn't do that thing where it kind of starts you over with a new set because time has passed and she's given up everything. Nope, she had her exact backpack. I don't know how much time has passed between this and when she put her backpack down at the theater, but she had all of her exact equipment ready to go. And that was cool because I had things, you know, things that I had worked hard to obtain, and resources that I had found, and skills and all that. So I was glad I had all that. Now at this point in the game, again, I kind of wanted to race to the end, but I kind of knew, I just had a good strong sense that this would be the end, and maybe even the final confrontation or encounter. So I wanted to really do it the right way, or make it last, you know. And so I decided I was going to kill everybody instead of trying to sneak through. And I was reading online later, and they said, you know, that these guys who are called the Rattlers, they're called the Rattlers. They're saying that the Rattlers are the hardest enemies that you encounter in the game, mostly because of their armor. But I was determined to stealth kill just about all of them, so the armor really has no effect at all if you get a stealth kill. And you can see Ellie's got her upgraded stealth kill, which is quick slit of the throat and then shot to the gut. In part 1, Ellie doesn't have a stealth kill. Her knife attack is not silent. And so you have to be more strategic about how you kill things and the order in which you kill things, because it's not going to be quiet. I think her bow is still quiet, but she doesn't have a stealth knife attack. And I remember thinking that in this game it would probably be the same way, and I remember thinking that was unfortunate and hoping it wasn't that way. But then I discovered that no, she has learned how to do it quiet. And I absolutely love her stealth attack. If there's one thing about the difference between playing as Abby and playing as Ellie, I liked playing as Ellie a lot more, and I think the reason was entirely because of how much I love the look of her stealth attack. Abby had the Joel-style choke, which is okay, but just nowhere near as brutal as what Ellie does. I think I liked Ellie's weapons too. You know, Abby's weapons were all just a little different, I guess, because they didn't want her to. They wanted her, the experience of being her, to be different. But since I was so used to the Ellie weapons, the little differences were they threw me off a little bit. I never got the balance right with melee weapons in this game. I was always like finding a weapon, upgrading it, and then finding a better weapon before I had finished using the one that I had just upgraded. And so I never understood, like, well, should I trade or not? Because it seemed like I was spending a lot of resources on constantly upgrading new melee weapons, but not using them all. I think maybe because I was playing on easy mode, I found a lot more of them, maybe than I would have found at a harder difficulty level. I'm not really sure. But I never quite got that down. One thing I would do when I would play this game is I would constantly pause. And the reason I was constantly pausing was I was constantly checking to see whether the menu said restart encounter or not. Because if it said restart encounter, that meant that I was in an encounter. And if I was in an encounter, that meant there were enemies nearby. But if it didn't say restart encounter, that meant there were no enemies nearby. I wasn't in an encounter and there were no enemies nearby. And I never, the game gives you some clues just so you could know that, but I always wanted to confirm. So I was constantly pausing and constantly looking at that menu. You can already notice by this point that Ellie is looking extremely dirty. She's got dirt and blood all over her. And I know she didn't start this way. She didn't start Santa Barbara this way. And I wonder if this is an effect that I wonder if it's like Bloodborne, where like literally at the moment that you kill someone, the character gets dirtier. Or maybe she looked like this after she got down from being hung up in the trap. I don't know if this is something that like a gradual shift that they did, or I don't know how they did it, but by the time, see, this is me pausing again to check if there's more of the encounter. But by the time Ellie gets down to the prison where Abby is, or Abby was, she just looks like complete hell. My thought was Rambo. I mean, Ellie basically is Rambo. I liked the way they made her look strong, but in a different way than Abby. But she's definitely not the same as she was in part 1. Even in the DLC of part 1, she's not like that. So this part, you don't even get a chance to sneak up. They know you're there right away. Or actually, maybe they don't. One thing that I never, I always forgot to ever use them, was my explosive arrows. I got them on purpose. I spent the money to get them as a skill, but then I never used them. And they would have been great. I mean, an arrow that has the effect of like a bomb, I could have done a lot with those. But I completely forgot to use them. And like this would have been a good battle to use them. But instead I just started shooting. One of the things, I always try to get headshots in this game because I never really understood how many shots to the body it would take to kill a guy. But one thing I learned literally right here at the end as I'm using this machine gun is that about 3 shots to the body would just kill him. So rather than obsess over the head, I just started doing 3 body shots because that would kill him. And with 44 rounds of ammo, I had enough to kill quite a few people that way. So this final battle here, I actually don't stealth kill this final battle. I kill all these guys with guns and stuff. I had a lot of predictions about how this game was going to end. At this point, it seemed like there was no way that Ellie was not going to try to want to kill Abby because, you know, I don't know why I'm pausing here for so long. It's completely insane what she's doing. You know, she's sneaking into, she's trying to get to the very inside of this compound. She didn't have to be here. She could have walked away. So it wouldn't, although there seemed like there was an obvious angle where maybe her and Abby would team up against these guys, that just didn't quite make sense given what she was doing. So I figured, she was definitely gonna try to kill Abby. But I also figured, I don't know. This game really had me thinking that they could do absolutely anything at the end. Like, you'd think that what you would expect, what you think should happen is that neither Ellie nor Abby should die. It would have been great if they could have come to understand one another, but you can understand why that wouldn't be possible. Because as the player, you've seen both perspectives, but you've seen it in a way that the characters would never be able to show each other. And so there's just no way that they could really ever come to understand one another, but they could still possibly just decide that they don't want to fight. I actually thought Lev, the point I was trying to make way long ago was I thought Lev might have played a role in getting Ellie to back off the same way as happened with Abby earlier in the game. But that did not happen because Lev was pretty much unconscious for the entire final battle.
Keep it up! Yeah. I got it! Right here! Fuck! You're gonna die, fucker!
I've actually taken quite a few gunshots. I don't know if this had been on hard mode or whatever. If each one of those would have just been, you're dead. I know this game has its grounded difficulty, and I don't know anything about that, but it would be interesting if grounded literally meant one shot and you're dead. Because, that would be pretty realistic. And I think a good player probably could win this game without ever getting shot, so it wouldn't be totally beyond. I learned after the fact that there were 2 upgrade tables or desks or whatever you want to call them, workshops in this level. I never found either one. I always got so shocked when I would go back and look at all the stuff that I didn't find because I'm a pretty thorough searcher. One of the reasons why I like to kill everybody is so that I can run around the level and check every nook and cranny because I'm always looking for resources, and somehow I missed 2 upgrade desks. I think that's pretty crazy. I think everybody's dead at this point. There's really nothing left to do. But there's still a lot of stuff laying around, I guess because I could have been sneaking through here this whole time while I was fighting those guys. So we're coming up on the ending. I had a lot of thoughts about this. I mean, first of all, actually in hindsight, it was kind of cool the way the prisoner said, you know, Abby's down by the pillars, she tried to escape. To me, that meant that Abby had escaped. I didn't realize, no, the pillars, that was the punishment for having tried to escape. And then, of course, you put that together later when you see her. I really liked the way Abby looked. She was almost unrecognizable. It was pretty nuts. And it made sense that they would make her like that so that she could have a fair fight, I guess, with Ellie. Although I'm not sure that they actually had to have that fight. I think one of these things about this game is that there's probably an unlimited number of ways that they could have told this story and that they could have ended this. They chose one. I think it was okay, but it's funny how at some point, as a player at least, you kind of you kind of stop being behind what's happening. Like I didn't even want Ellie to come to California at all. You know, I didn't want her to leave Dina. I didn't want her to continue to pursue this.
Abby tried to escape.
And
She's down the pillars.
The pillars?
you know, when they have their battle on the beach, I didn't really.
She's probably already dead.
It was just a strange thing.
Come on.
It was strange in multiple ways because it was like I didn't have a rooting interest. I didn't really want either person to win. Both people seemed extremely sympathetic at the moment, including Abby, especially Abby. And it was also incredible because at the moment, the game really had me thinking that absolutely any outcome was possible. It was possible that I still thought the most likely thing was that they both live. But it seemed almost equally possible that Ellie would successfully kill Abby. And they definitely took the part where she's drowning her in the water, like right up to the edge of that. And they had me believing, they really did have me believing that that's what was going to happen. That Abby was going to die. But before that, I would not have been surprised if Ellie had died, if Abby had killed Ellie. I mean, this game had, it takes you on such a wild ride with so many twists and turns, and it shows you that it's kind of willing to go anywhere, and it's not really concerned about what you want or what you think ought to happen. It's just going to do its own thing, and so, it's not clear if the game thinks that Ellie is a good person, if the game thinks Joel's a good person, if the game thinks Ellie's a good person, if the game thinks Abby's a good person. It's not clear that the game thinks that any of these people ought to win or lose, live or die. So anything could happen. Lev, they probably wanted Lev to live.
Head to the beach.
This part was powerful. And I like that this game had stuff like this. Scenes. These are scenes that you might just watch the character do this in a cinematic, but instead they let you play it. Including part of the ending. They let you play part of the ending back at the farmhouse. I like that. I think that's cool. And I thought this was cool. And when we come to these, there were a few moments in this game where you turn a corner and you see something and you're just like, oh my God. And that's what I thought here. I think Ellie says something too. Yeah, she says holy. At this moment, I didn't actually think I was going to see Abby on one of these. I still thought I was going to see Abby like trying to get into a boat, trying to escape. It did not hit me yet that like, no, she's actually on one of these.
Abby?
And I think I tried to go everywhere, and it was only when I realized that there was nowhere to go. I think I could hear something. You know, I always play these games with headphones on, and so there's really good audio. And it's stereo, so the audio will be coming from, the sound you hear will be coming from the direction of the person. And so I think I could hear breathing or something like that, and that's when it hit me that like Abby's probably hanging from one of these things, and I need to go find her. I think I looked at somebody that wasn't Abby first. Yeah, this girl here. I thought, okay, is that Abby? Because she's got the right hair. But it wasn't Abby. And then I saw the circle there, and then that's when I knew. And I just took a moment to really observe her. I was trying to see if I could tell that that was Abby, and I really couldn't, you know. She's much slimmer, her arms seem more normal, and her hair's obviously cut, and even her face, it's so thin. You know, it's skeletal. It's really hard to recognize her. The true Abby has a much rounder face than this. I'm sure I'm going to avoid looking up anything like this because I don't want to get into the weeds on this. I'm sure there are like camps out there on the internet of people who are like thinking that Abby was the good one versus Ellie. I think obviously they both have good and bad to them. But I think since Ellie was the established character and she was the, you know, totally sympathetic hero from part one, I think that they had to work hard to keep Abby at an equal level of sympathy, because I do think that that's what the developers intended. I think that they intended for you to feel the way I felt, which was that neither one of these people should die. And, you know, both of these people were really victims of this plague itself, and it caused them to do things that they would not have done if there had been no zombie plague. And, you know, I'm sure they are capable of regret and remorse, and they've both experienced it. And we also know that it would likely not make, well, I don't know. I don't know that Ellie would feel better if she were to kill Abby instead of let Abby escape in a boat. I really don't know. I don't know what that business was about where Ellie was having those flashbacks and stuff back on the farm. But my point was, I think that the developers definitely wanted you to have... They needed to make Abby... They needed to work overtime to make Abby sympathetic, especially here in the final moments. And so I think this whole thing where she has been a prisoner, and she's small, and she's weak, and she's only caring about Lev, those were good touches. I mean, it's pretty hard in this moment to really like feel like Abby must die. That's, who would think that? I don't know. I didn't. I like the tattoos on Ellie. That was a good touch. It made sense. They worked it into the plot, and I think it gave her a really cool look. So one thing is that I had actually seen this very scene before once on YouTube. Before I ever played this game, I clicked on a link on YouTube that said, The Last of Us Final Boss. and it showed this scene, which I did not watch to the end. I only watched it until Abby rushes at Ellie and they start having, like, press square.
I'm not gonna fight you.
So it was really just this little bit of dialogue right here.
Yes, you will.
I saw this before I watched any of this game, before I played any of this game. And the funny thing about it is, just like I said, Abby is totally unrecognizable.
You made him a
And I didn't know when I started playing the game that this was Abby. But I did always know in the back of my head that there was going to be a scene like this at some point. So just like earlier in the game, you have to play Abby fighting against Ellie. Now you have to play Ellie fighting against Abby. And I think that is the way it ought to be, in the final battle. Before I knew they were going to be battling again, I kind of didn't like the way they had you control Abby against Ellie. And now we're having this fight. And this is the fight where I kind of feel like, does this make the game better that they did this? I don't know. I mean, it was certainly emotionally very intense moment. And again, part of it for me was because I really didn't know. This was like, not to cheapen the moment, but this was the Ultimate Warrior versus Hulk Hogan right here. Like, part of what's so intriguing about it is that you just have no idea how it's going to go, because you can't imagine either outcome. You can't imagine them killing Ellie, ever. And you really can't imagine them killing Abby either. I mean, it would be kind of shocking at this point if that's what they did. And yet here they are fighting to the death, so it's like something's got to give. So what's it going to be? I don't know if you can lose this. I definitely seemed like I was doing something wrong at one point. It seemed like Abby was... See, like here, it looks like Abby's blocking all my shots. I'm ducking and punching, but she's still blocking. I didn't know if I was doing it right or wrong or what. But here we are. Looks like this is only going to be run for about 4 more minutes, so I need to think about what my closing thoughts are about this game. The potential for a happy ending is possible with both characters because, of course, they both ultimately live, and they don't seem to be in any immediate danger, and there are places for them to go. Abby can return to... Abby can attempt to find more Fireflies. She did get a lead on where they were. There's no guarantee she'll make it there, since there's groups like the Rattlers out there that'll get you. Can you believe she actually bit the entire fingers off in that moment? You don't realize that until the ending. That's crazy to me. What a brutal fight. I don't know if I've ever seen anything like this. This is me pausing to see. I don't know why I paused here. But once I saw that it said skip cinematic, I knew I wasn't actually playing this anymore. But there's potential for a happy outcome for Abby. She'll have a lot of emotional scars, and Ellie too, but at least they have a safe place to go, and they have some companionship. Abby has Lev, and Ellie can go back to Wyoming and find Dina. I assume Dina's in Wyoming. I don't know where. There's one thing about a world like this is there's not that many places people can go.
No. Just take him.
So there is the potential for a happy outcome with both characters, but you didn't get to see it. And I don't know. Obviously, that was a big decision that they made. They wanted to kind of just end everything on just sadness, despair. horribleness, because even though Ellie has survived this game and the events of this game, her life is clearly way, way worse than it was in the beginning. Like, nothing good has come from this. And likewise for Abby. So this is like a story of two people who were kind of doing okay in a zombie world, and they both made these choices that just led to total shit. And they have survived, but at what, at an insane cost. And yet they've endeared themselves to the player, so it's like the player wants to see something good, but you don't get to see that. I thought the scene where, I don't think I recorded long enough, but the scene where she goes into the room and opens the room up and all her stuff is there, that was powerful. I don't even know what the message was. I don't know if it was really Dina doesn't care about you, or Dina's leaving this for you to find if you ever come back, or Dina just, it's a hard life, it's hard to move, and she can't carry everything, so she just left it. I don't know what the point was, but it was powerful. It was cool. I'm such a goofy completionist that I usually don't like to go somewhere before I confirm that you can't go anywhere else. Anyway, time's running up, so we have to close this down. This was my Last of Us video. I thought this was an amazing game. Part 1 was amazing. Part 2 was amazing. Loved them both. I might still keep playing it if I find the will, but this was great. All right, end of video.